Hey guys, Parker with podcastvideos.com here. Got some pretty cool, interesting stats from the podcasting industry here. Some that we came across recently, really liked them. We think you guys will find them interesting as well. So I just kind of want to run through a few of them here. So there's 4.1 million different podcasts covering more than 132 million episodes. So while that may sound like a lot, it's actually expected to hit nearly 505 million by the end of this year. That's a pretty incredible growth whenever you really see everybody's like, well, the podcast industry, there's a lot happening. Is it still growing? To go from 132 million episodes out there to more than 500 million in the next year is a pretty incredible number. It's actually up 8.7% from what it was in 2023. So a lot of people are asking, well, there's so many podcasts out there, there's so many episodes out there, why would I really want to start one? I'm just kind of another fish in the pond. What's actually really interesting is, even though there's a lot of numbers behind that, the top 1% of all performing podcasts average nearly 5,000 downloads a week. When you really put that into the grand scheme of things, it's really not all that much. Now, while it does take a lot to kind of get it there first, 5,000 downloads is definitely attainable for a new show, especially if you stick with it and kind of continue grinding through it. With the amount of shows that are out there, it can kind of get overwhelming with everything that I kind of want to do. Well, how do I get it out there? How do I do it? There's currently more than 24 major services in existence to really help people kind of get their podcasts out there. They'll do the hosting for you, the distribution. You just kind of have to really do it through one central hub. So while there's a lot to kind of go and a lot to learn, there's really a good variety of different things that you can tap into to really enhance your podcast. Another interesting stat is that there's an average of 200,000 podcasts that publish their episodes at least once or twice a week, and an additional 132,000 more produce theirs on a monthly basis. To kind of really put into scale how much the podcast industry is really growing, just a week ago, 469,000 episodes were added onto platforms, and in the last month, there's been 1.94 million new episodes added. So with the amount of podcasts out there, people are like, well, how many people are actually listening to podcasts on a regular basis? Predictions actually say that there's going to be over 500 million podcast listeners by the end of this year. So probably somebody that you either know, if it's not yourself, more than likely has listened to a podcast within the last couple of days. To add some numbers to that, there's about 79% of Americans that are actually aware of what podcasting is, with 62% of Americans haven't listened to a podcast within the last week. So there's no shortage of platforms that you can really have your podcast hosted through, but a couple of the giants are really the ones that we already know. Spotify gets 33.7% of all podcast listens, and then Apple is a really close second to that at 27.6%. So if you're podcasting it from like a company standpoint or a business, you want to grow your personal business setting, a really interesting stat for you is going to be that listeners believe that podcast hosts are 64% more trustworthy compared to other influencers. If you're curious how influential podcasts really are, 51% of marketers are planning on adding podcasting into their marketing strategy. Kind of a newer trend within podcasting is the video side of things. A lot of people still listen to podcasting, but they've never really seen a video or haven't really checked it out. What's interesting about that, though, is that podcast videos have actually jumped up about 20% in the last 6 months. And actually, studies show that video podcasts are 50% more engaging than audio-only podcasts.